All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's December 8th, 2021. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team while showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format's very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered, so feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. Our call today is recorded, and we'll automatically post a recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the content and want to support it, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, that's youtube.com/cloudposse to subscribe. And don't forget to share the videos with your team. So if they can't make office hours, you can always share it and spread the word that way. So with that said, let's kick it off. So we have a little bit of a post-reInvent hangover here, lots of Amazon announcements, and a fresh AWS outage. And I can't recall exactly, but just in this moment, I feel like I remember past outages happening after reInvent. Does anybody else have any concrete evidence to back that up? Because I suspect Amazon holds back on making any disruptive changes during the week of reInvent to avoid PR nightmares. Anybody have any theories on the postmortem? Since there is no official postmortem yet on what led to the outage yesterday.
No theories yet, but there is this website, awsmaniac.com, and it has a history of AWS outages. It doesn't have the most recent one, though.
It has a list of what in particular on the complete history of AWS outages.
Yeah,
nice.
that's the link. Yeah.
Okay. Very timely. Oh, with a timeline. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's interesting here. All right, so let's see here. If we go back to like 2019.
Or maybe it does have the latest one. Yeah.
This one here, when was that? That was November, so that would have been before reInvent.
Yep, the one you're looking at right now, the S3, was the big one before this one. So they happen every 3 to 5 years, which it's not ideal, but it's fine, I get it.
Armageddon's. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it comes with the territory. I mean, for the most part, you're avoiding all the other issues that come along with self-managed infrastructure. Yeah, I saw other like conspiracy theories. One was it was related to the Biden-Putin call and retaliatory attack against Amazon, but I don't know. I don't think that one is the most likely explanation right now. I think it's more likely that they were just holding off on disrupting things during reInvent. Not that this was deliberate or anything, but deferred maintenance. All right. Another announcement, which was exciting, at least for our team, because we just recently had to do this, and well, I guess now that's tech debt, but we recently implemented WAF logging with Kinesis. Well, now that's not necessary. If you want to get your logs into S3, you can actually just have a native integration with S3 or CloudWatch Log groups. So if you're using WAF, another simplification. Construct Hub. I can't recall if we talked about this last week, but I thought this was an exciting announcement, even though like we don't really use CDK or CloudFormation much. But this is, first of all, Amazon's first website that doesn't look like Amazon and actually is kind of nice. Simple, follows like Operator Hub kind of in terms of styling and how it works. But Construct Hub is Amazon's first foray into providing a hub for distributing patterns and templates, kind of like the Terraform registry or Docker Hub or PyP or any of these successful languages or frameworks have a place to distribute reusable modules or plugins. Amazon is finally addressing this vacuum within CDK and providing a place to search for that. So maybe this is going to increase adoption. Well, here's the thing. I guess outside of our clique, outside of our little bubble, CloudFormation and CDK is probably ruling Amazon. Just in our little bubble, all we see is Terraform, but apparently Terraform is a pretty small usage part of IAC in the AWS ecosystem. So anyways, I don't know what I mean by this other than maybe this is good for greater adoption within CDK.
Can one comment on that though?
Yeah.
I wonder too if that's also a result of frameworks that use CloudFormation on the back end, like the serverless framework or the SAM CLI. Yeah, they all use CloudFormation on the back end. So
yeah. I don't know what the impact is, or I mean, I get the logical relationship what you're describing. I don't know if there's anything more than that. I don't like this is also interesting though. Like obviously CDKTF exists. I really wonder what that looks like. Packaging up CDK packages based on underlying Terraform. Too many layers, my head explodes. Can't compute. And obviously Pulumi is the other one.
I like CDK for Terraform, if that counts for anything. I don't think it's ready and I wouldn't use it in production. I mean, unlike the vanilla CDK is not 1.0, but I really love the idea of it. It's giving developers the possibility to generate Terraform with tools they know, like programming languages, but it's still generated Terraform that we can put in the same pipelines, use the same tools, use the same apply thing. It's just making it friendlier.
Yeah,
I like that idea. We'll see how well it behaves in practice because after all, this is still a young project, but the idea is awesome and the developer experience around it is divine.
And that was another thing I left out of here, which was Amazon's announcement. What is there? It's not Cloud9, but that was another kind of popular announcement that they have some more integrated IDE now with CDK, but haven't looked into it. You know what I'm talking about, Vlad?
I have no idea and I'm extremely confused.
Let me see. I'll look that up later, see if I can find what I'm thinking of.
I also haven't really kept up to date with all the releases, to be honest.
Yeah. The next announcement was DevOps Guru for RDS. Now, I brought this one up more because I haven't even looked into DevOps Guru at all. The name sounds a little bit cliche to me, so turned me away from it, but maybe it's pretty cool actually. I don't know. I'd like to hear firsthand from anybody who's used it, kicked the tires on it, or using it for reals. And if it's solving, making it easier to optimize your Aurora RDS databases and queries underneath and so forth, sounds interesting. Anybody using DevOps Guru in general before this announcement? Well, there it is, resounding no.
I can't say I've got a demo of this and I've seen it used. It's valid, like it's better than nothing, and it's super cheap, and it helps show, it helps bubble up errors like, hey, you miss an index on this table. Hey, your queries suddenly have absolutely horrible times. Hey, something wrong has happened here. Like it's helpful from that. It's missing context because it's just monitoring, but it's nice automation around monitoring. I like it.
Okay.
And it was rather cheap when I looked at the pricing. So I think it's a good step.
It seems like something that should have just been bundled as part of CloudWatch to me. Is it? But it's a separate product technically, right?
It is a separate product, yeah. I'm not gonna get into how AWS builds products. I like it. I mean, if you're gonna give me a ton of metrics, which databases do generate, having another tool on top of that to actually show me the metrics that I'm relevant in and the errors and things that I should be looking at, that sounds awesome. And DevOps Guru for RDS really looks like it's doing that, so I'm excited.
Yeah. There's a screenshot here. All right. Let's see. Then just wanted, for anybody else who is wasn't able to attend reInvent or running behind, there are a few good summaries out there for it. One that I like in particular is the summary by the Cloud Guru, which has summarized those findings. Where is it here? It's a little bit redundant with the top announcements from AWS's own blog. And then a couple other ones. So it's really interesting, some of the directions Amazon is going in. One of the key things was just more and more enterprisey like features, which makes sense, obviously, since that's where the deeper pockets are. And more serverless offerings. The other announcements that were interesting were top 12 security related announcements, so niching it down. And I think the continuous vulnerability management for ECR was an interesting announcement. Haven't looked into it more yet, though. Obviously, the pull-through cache stuff with ECR, which we brought up, was exciting. Unfortunately, it only supports a small set of public registries to pull through on the cache, so not just any public registry. Yeah, threat detection for guard duty, automated secrets detector. This is if you are using AWS Code Guru for code review. I haven't looked into Code Guru at all, so not sure about that. Anybody using Code Guru? All right. I mean, it's just amazing how many services there are on Amazon. So at least I'm not alone, having not touched every square inch. Amazon Workspaces Web. So I guess this is like a slimmed down AWS Workspaces that works within the browser. Now I'm a little bit confused because AWS Workspaces has had support for browser-based remote desktops, except for not all OSs. I don't think you could launch like a Linux OS with web-based workspaces. So I'm not sure, what the scope of this announcement is. Simpler S3 access management, automated DDoS mitigation with the MFA, or sorry, the challenge, the JavaScript challenge. We announced that last week. That was cool. Yeah, that's that. All right, that's the end of my kind of announcements for AWS reInvent. To wrap this up, don't want to dwell on it too long. Anybody else have anything else on reInvent before we move on?
AppSync got a big announcement yesterday. They now support custom domains, which is awesome.
What was that again?
AppSync now supports custom domains. It was just released yesterday. Give me a second to find the link. There you go. AppSync basically puts a GraphQL API in front of databases and automatically connects to a bunch of things.
Oh, wow.
It replaces a lot of crude APIs in front of databases.
That's cool. I get it. And which backends does it support today? Aside from Dynamo? Aurora, Elasticsearch. Nice.
And you can integrate whatever you want with
a generic
Lambda.
Lambda, yeah. Oh, very cool. Yeah. see the use case for that. Oh, what was that's what it was, I think. What was the thing you turned us on to, or you reminded us of last week, Vlad? You know, stop deploying your single page applications with CloudFormation and
Amplify console.
Amplify console. Yeah, so this is Amplify Studio is what I was thinking of, Vlad.
Oh, does that use? Yeah, it technically uses CloudFormation. Okay.
But Amplify Studio was this enhanced IDE, I guess, for developing with low code applications. I wasn't that excited about it, but you know, to each their own. Amplify, yeah, AWS Amplify Studio. The demo was the standard demo of building like a CMS like tool without any code, just drag and drop of fields. And I've seen so many of those over the years that I don't get excited about yet another CMS generation tool. Because as soon as you start trying to do anything more complicated, it breaks down. But hey, maybe good place to start. All right.
Be optimistic about Amplify Studio if it helps. Like the Amplify team also announced, what was it, escape hatches for when Amplify is not enough for you anymore. And they're really getting it. Like, well, if you've ever used Amplify, I don't know, 3 years ago, it was awesome. But as soon as you wanted to do anything outside of Amplify, it became the world's biggest pain.
Well, I love that they call it escape hatch.
Yeah, and in the last couple years, the team behind Amplify really got that. They moved all their libraries to be more independent. They enhanced their libraries to not require Amplify. So like you can use the Amplify auth library without using Amplify just by connecting to Cognito directly and things like that. So they have been slowly decomposing that, and that's been awesome. And they recently added escape hatches, which really shows that they get it. So that's making me super optimistic for Amplify itself. And Amplify Studio is something on top of that. So I'm optimistic.
Okay. I think it's worthy of me to take another look at this, adding it to my own notes. All right. Other just brief announcements. We have a couple modules under development. They're not yet released, but the PRs are there. So in case you've been waiting for Cloud Posse to finally come out with an API gateway module, here it is. It's on its way. It'll be ready. This is for API Gateway v2. We are skipping over v1, which is way more complicated to implement. And the other one is managed workflows for Apache Airflow. So we have a work in progress on that as well. I guess the latest branch has not been pushed up yet. Cool. Before we move on to questions, any other announcements generally related to Terraform, DevOps, our community? All right, let's get into Q&A. I don't know if we have, we don't have any questions prepared here. So let's check the chat. See, there's some messages I've missed here. Oh yeah, I see you also answered there. Yeah, was it Amplify Studio? Yep, that's what I was talking about. AppSync endpoints, cool. All right, Q&A, anyone?
I have one question, Eric.
Yeah, go for it.
Service mesh tools, there's not a whole lot of, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of convergence on one or the other. There's quite a few options out there. How do you think about evaluating service mesh tools? What what things, criteria do you look to test when you're doing that?
Yeah, I don't have any, unfortunately, I don't have any success stories related to service mesh yet. they start off working wonders, and then the teams move on and they don't know how to operate it. And I guess the problem I feel like with service meshes is if you were too early of an adopter, there's just been a world of hurt to stay up to date. So Jim, you had some positive announcement, positive work in a POC with AWS App Mesh. I remember that gave me some excitement to try that out. Haven't gone for it yet. We have a customer using Gong, and I don't know. Based on this experience, now we aren't working on the implementation, so I can only look at it from the outside looking in. Gong has not looked appealing to me at all. Very fragile from a platform stability perspective. If you're auto scaling your nodes up and down and the Kong controllers are rescheduled and other pods are coming up and you don't have maybe your pod priorities correct or something, it just leads to this situation where you have these defunct pods that have no network connectivity. They don't know that they don't have network connectivity, and Kong doesn't try and reload them. Or if Kong comes up after your pods, Kong doesn't go and try and fix the pods that weren't part of the mesh, even though those pods have the annotations. So I can't say good things about Kong from what I've seen so far. Istio has obviously been the one seeing the most uptick of attention. Istio up until, I forget the version, the most recent, one of the most recent releases, they emphasized day 2 operations, upgrading operators. The biggest problem with service meshes is that they have the operator problem. There's a great write-up by Helm and I don't remember how I'm going to find it fast enough. It breaks down just all the issues you have working with day 2 operations and operators. So my advice is if you go the service mesh route and it's using operators and you're not aware of all the gotchas with operators in Kubernetes, and if you don't have the ability to do blue-green clusters, it might be too soon to tackle it. Anybody else have more positive experiences to share? While I look up this issue with Helm operators.
I could recap my experience at Sledger for those that haven't heard of our use case for service mesh. What Eric was referring to is I created a sequence of GitHub actions that would configure AWS App Mesh, which you may or may not know. What AWS App Mesh gives you is a control plane for Envoy. And so using Envoy, we're able to do hostname based routing for pull requests. So whenever someone creates a pull request, we automatically generate a name for them. And then we create a service in our staging stack that will respond to pull request number .slideshare staging.net. And what that gives our developers is the ability to see what their build would look like using that staging data set. So that's been pretty good for me because and the prerequisite for that is that there is a something that's dynamically generated and not a stable kind of thing. I think in practice, what you would find is that that kind of dynamicism is kind of an important prerequisite to using service mesh, because otherwise it's just a fancy load balancer in a way, right? So what's the point if you have a kind of static endpoint? I think I would think twice about introducing that complexity. That's my perspective on it.
I fully agree with that. Like service meshes are fancy load balancers. If you are kind of mean about it. There are very cases, and I had awesome experiences both with Istio and Linkerd. highly recommend Linkerd. It's awesome, but they are very, very, very specific. They're very complex, and the developer and user experience is not there. I am hoping somebody is going to come up with a friendlier service mesh in, I don't know, a couple of years or something. But now it's not. It's way too early. They're way too complex. It's way too many things to manage. They often break at scale, kind of ish, in the sense that you either have to do a lot of custom things or it breaks. I also wouldn't do service meshes in most use cases. Just like how I wouldn't do how I default to AWS load balancer controller for ingress in Kubernetes instead of doing Nginx or traffic or whatever else. There are valid reasons. They're not a lot.
Yeah, I think like the maturity path here is like if you find yourself in a situation where you're spinning up load balancers like all the time and then tearing them down, or if you're modifying an HA proxy config and then reloading it, and like 30% of the time you crash HA proxy because of something breaks on the back end, that might be a case for distribution into a service mesh. I think that might be one path.
And being able to serve concurrent versions of the same service based on layer 7 metadata, like different users.
Yeah, I thought about building out some sort of feature flagging system into it. Essentially just, using whatever to pass some headers back and forth, do some higher order analysis. But there's so many tools nowadays that may not be a best fit for it.
And well, I guess let's also, what we didn't do is we kind of just jumped into, all of our experiences with service meshes. But maybe the first way to start, we're talking about this should really be like, what is the problem, right? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And then why do we consider a service mesh? And the problems that we might be trying to solve is one, how do we get end-to-end encryption between all of our services within our VPC or between clusters? Or it could be, how do we enable cross-cluster communication, cross-account communication in a secure way? Or the problem could be, how do we do efficient authentication of services in a highly concurrent distributed microservices environment? Meaning, like, how do we do efficient MTLS without having to manage the TLS ourselves? The other question which you guys touched on is, how do we do this complex routing? We have lots of services and we need to send different versions to different versions of services running. These are all the questions or all the problems you should have if you're considering using a service mesh. And then it's like, well, what are all the problems that the service mesh introduces? The service mesh maybe doesn't introduce that many problems, and they're quite easy to get up and running. Like, you'll get up and running within an hour of kicking the tires on it. The issue is day 2 operations. And before you go to production, make sure you've gone through the exercise of upgrading between a couple major versions of that service mesh, so that you're not left in production scratching your head on if you can or cannot upgrade your service mesh.
I want to add one kind of fun fact that I would argue, like like setting up like this branch preview system for SlideShare took me about 2 months. It didn't take me an hour.
Oh, really?
It took me a long time. Partly because I was writing the GitHub Actions from scratch, but also partly because like troubleshooting, and this doesn't take 2 months, but one thing that was interesting from deploying that I learned was that, how you have your containers and you have your container health checks, and then you have your load balancers and your load balancer health checks. Now you have your service, your virtual service and their virtual service health check, and then you have like the service discovery cloud map, and its health check if you configure that one you can actually out. So you're adding more layers of where shit can go wrong. Pardon my French.
Well, joking aside, when you have these many health checks, also from all these different services hitting the same health check endpoints, you look at the logs for your service and it's serving like 10, 15, 20 requests per second. And they're just health checks.
Just in health checks. Yeah. You're right.
You're not even serving traffic yet.
It really makes having a health check endpoint very important for your app.
Yeah, and very important that your health check endpoints are very efficient.
Yeah,
right.
My question was more, it came from the developers. It's a foregone conclusion that they want to use a service mesh, but then the question is, well, which one? And there's no shortage of options out there, and it's not,
no shortage. Yeah.
Which one and why?
Yeah, 99% of the time what happens, it's the team comes from a background working at another company that had a service mesh. They didn't implement the service mesh, but they liked using the service mesh because of the features that brought on. And there are two use cases here, user groups, right? There's the group that has to maintain it, and there's the group that gets the benefits of it. So then what happens is that they came from Airbnb, and Airbnb was using Istio or something, or they came from this other service and they were using Linkerd. So that's what they end up going with. It's just what they have the most experience with. I think seldom is a true evaluation of all the options there.
Yeah, that's usually true of most things too, right?
Most things, yes. It's what you have experience with. You use GitHub because you used GitHub last time. You use GitLab because you used GitLab last time.
Yeah. Okay. I was mainly curious if anybody on the call had like a strong opinion for or against a specific service mesh tool, but
yeah. So I can only add the strong opinion against Kong. I can't add a positive for anything else yet. Anybody else have a strong opinion, one or the other? I will say what I like about the app mesh from an opinion standpoint is it's nice that you then have, if you have enterprise support with AWS, you have somebody you can go to if you are having issues. So if you're trying to go with any of these options, there's probably 24 service mesh offerings out there. That's probably a underestimation of how many service meshes there are out there. But if you don't get commercial support with it, and it's in the critical path of everything, watch out.
I can add a little something if.
Yeah, go for it, Tamsky.
So some of the best service discovery implementations that I've seen implement the service discovery at the RPC layer. So it's what you would call client-based load balancing. So the client seeks out what the list of backends is and performs the load balancing steps every time it opens a new connection or every time it creates a new request. And this is something that's like intrinsic to the gRPC libraries. So gRPC supports multiple types of load balancing, client-based load balancing and discovery within the library.
That makes sense. And it's simple. It's more straightforward than to triage and debug. And I guess what service meshes are trying to do is solve this at an abstract layer for applications that were never built to operate in a mesh environment.
Definitely. And when you add another layer of abstraction, you add another layer of complexity, right?
Yeah.
So obviously native support gives you tighter, more tightly coupled situations to handle.
And going back to our problem statements. So if we go back to those problem statements, and I know in your case, Andy, you said the developers in this case, it's foregone conclusion, they want to mesh. Okay, I accept it. But if we, since this is office hours, now if we do a little bit of pushback or we just reframe it a little bit, there is also an alternative to using service meshes, which are API gateways. API gateways are kind of the naive predecessor to service meshes. And I think API gateways are uncool today because they are this centralized single point of failure. And if you're coming from this background where your API gateway was your Nginx server and everyone has this experience, and then Nginx goes down, your whole production goes down. And what did we buy ourselves? So fair point. However, there are managed API gateways today, and you can treat it more or less like an appliance, offload that burden to somebody else. And it's kind of like it simplifies the architecture a whole great deal by having the API gateway then instead of going the service mesh route. And it might buy you most of what you wanted to accomplish without the need for a mesh. And Amazon obviously has a service for that. Any counter argument to what I just said? Can be devil's advocate too.
I mean, I just want to, like, just kind of call out, a little bit of rich hickey. Simplicity is often a better choice. They're trying to throw as much complexity into architecture that you, what is it? You're not going to use it, Yagni?
Yeah, you're not going to need it.
You're going to need it. Yeah, a lot of times it's like we try to be overly prepared and have all the complexity up front. But that's kind of an anti-pattern. Like, we just need to have like good, solid. How should I phrase it? Like, I think of them like some sort of like liquidity layer. A liquidity layer is like, your load balancer with your registered targets, right? That's fairly stable, right? And it should be stable. Your DNS endpoint should point to your load balancer. Your load balancer should point to dynamic targets, right? That's an obvious case, right? But as long as you have like your liquidity layer, you could change stuff underneath.
Yeah, it's a reversible decision.
Cool. There's a new question in the chat, so thanks for the feedback though.
Yeah, for sure. Tamsky asks, I'm curious if any folks have opinions on AWS AppSync service, gotcha, and pitfalls. So this is, I guess, a follow-up on what Vlad was talking about earlier, being excited about AWS AppSync. Vlad or anyone else? Pitfalls, gotchas?
A lot of them. Keep in mind that AppSync and GraphQL in general are rather new-ish field. So there are a bunch of issues with clients and interfacing and APIs and things like that. Pretty much every GraphQL provider has their own way of doing things. Like Apollo does something, Hasura does something, AppSync does something, and it's just fabulous. I would also add that a really common blocker is the lack of federation support. So you cannot easily have an AppSync talk with another AppSync, and AppSync is pretty much single account. I mean, yes, of course, you can use a Lambda resolver to connect the things in another account and things like that, but it's not ideal. There's an issue for that AppSync also has a roadmap on GitHub, which I really like. So the federation is a blocker for most people. They just want one API for everything, which may or may not be an anti-pattern. Other than that, things break. Some things are not ideal, things like that. But overall, I think it's an awesome service, and it saves so much time and so much effort. I'm a fan of it.
Cool. All right. This is a new GraphQL deployment or work that's being done, and I'm trying to guide folks. And it's all. I think they're doing it all in TypeScript, and so anyway, thanks.
TypeScript should be fine. I think most clients should work with AppSync. I don't think I've had issues with that, but don't expect a seamless migration from something else to AppSync or from AppSync to something else. And definitely check out the roadmap and issues that people are complaining about on GitHub. And also federation support is allegedly coming. I don't know when or how, but it is.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Let's see any more on sweetops, office hours. There was one thing I could talk about, something we learned the hard way and we're still grappling with and haven't found a solution for. So we've kind of downplayed helm files a little bit for the past year. To Mark Tamsky's point, every layer that you add adds complexity, and fair point. I mean, they introduce one form of complexity and introduce another form of simplicity, right? They simplify things, otherwise we wouldn't add those layers. So helmfile was that simplification for us as a way of declaratively defining how we would deploy our Helm releases. And then we thought the Terraform Helm provider kind of had matured to the point where we didn't need helmfile anymore. And boy, were we wrong, because the Terraform Helm provider has a lot of issues. The Terraform Helm provider won't detect if there's any discrepancies between what's been deployed in the Kubernetes cluster versus your charts. So if you go in and cowboy code something or something else cowboy, or edits something in your Kubernetes cluster related to a Helm release, and you rerun Terraform plan, you won't see those changes. Worse yet, if you change the values even locally and you run a Terraform plan, there's conditions under which it doesn't detect that there were any changes. Or if you change the chart code, like the templates in the chart, but the version is the same of the chart, same deal, doesn't detect any drift. So we've had to really rethink this whole strategy using Terraform to manage Helm releases. We thought we had the answer. Hey, we're just going to use the data source part of the Helm provider to generate the raw manifests of Kubernetes. And then we're going to use the built-in support of the native Kubernetes provider in Terraform to just apply those manifests. Problem solved. Terraform definitely doesn't have this problem with the Kubernetes data source, or sorry, with the Kubernetes resource and manifest, right? No, same problem. So the Kubernetes manifest resource does not also effectively, I guess, detect drift, or there's some other edge cases, I guess, where it just crashes the provider. I don't have the firsthand experience here, so I'm repeating a little bit word of mouth what my team's been telling me. So we are at this point where we don't really have a sound path forward that will ensure drift detection using Terraform with Helm or with Kubernetes. And we're kind of hoping that some of these are going to be fixed in 1.20 or 1.21, which we haven't validated against yet. I guess the problem is related to server-side applies in Kubernetes, but that's as much as I know. I bring this up because Joaquin, a longtime sweetops member, was asking, why we aren't using helmfile anymore, and I shared what we are using about a month ago, and about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, shortly after this, I learned of all these shortcomings of Terraform managing Kubernetes resource. So, anybody?
Patrick here. I don't have an answer, but I am having all of the same problems, and it's a struggle because I don't like manage my own team, and I'm like, we need to stop using this until we can find a better solution. And so for my project I do have control over, I've just managed to just using Helm and bash scripts and such because of the pain point in things getting deployed that shouldn't be getting deployed and things because people are missing changes.
But Patrick, do I recall incorrectly? I thought you were also a helmfile user, no? Originally, or?
No, I am very much.
You were never. Okay.
No, I am very much against using Terraform to apply Helm things.
Well, no. I'm saying helmfile is not Terraform.
Oh,
helmfile works perfect. Helmfile is perfect. The problems I'm describing is with Helm. We've pulled back our investment into helmfile in support of just using Terraform, consolidating the tools and the strategies. But we're being slapped on the hands for doing that now because of the surprising limitations with Terraform managing anything in Kubernetes.
Oh, yes. All right. No, I am a fan of helmfile, but using Terraform to apply Helm charts.
Okay. Yeah,
so using a fan of.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we're still there's lots of ways to do it. I've been trying to get away from the bash scripting approach, which is obviously the way I think ultimately most people end up doing it. It's just really still to this day. So and the question is like, well, why don't you use Argo CD? Okay, cool, but what manages Argo CD, and then what manages the IAM roles for Argo CD and all that? So what we really loved about this pattern was for backing service, for foundational backing services deployed to Kubernetes, we could provision the IAM roles, map them to URSA roles within Kubernetes, and deploy the charts and S3 buckets all in one fell swoop. And it was beautiful until we learned about these warts. All right. And there is a Helm file provider for Terraform, which we do use at one customer site, and that works fine. We were just trying to not have Terraform managing Helm file, managing Helm, managing Kubernetes. We were just trying to cut out one layer, and that didn't work. All right. Any other questions here? I see in the chat. Any message I missed here? AppSync issues from Vlad here. This was the issue related to Federation of AppSyncs. All right. And in sweetops Slack, any other questions? Last call for questions. All right. Well, I guess we can end office hours a little bit early today, and I appreciate everyone's participation and questions and support. As always, awesome to learn from all of you. See you all next week, same place, same time. Just wanted to cut in and remind everyone, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, do subscribe. It helps us out a great deal. Go to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, youtube.com/cloudposse. I always welcome invitations or connections from our community. So if you haven't yet added me on LinkedIn, you can add me at linkedin.com/in/Osterman, as well as subscribe to receive calendar invites for our weekly office hours. Just head over to cloudposse.com/office-hours. Key in your email address and you'll get an email invitation for our weekly office hours. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you all next week. Same place, same time.